Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah ma ba'd. The question is asking here. Now, it's not just one question. There's a series of questions that have come through asking about da'wah. I want to give da'wah. I want to engage myself in calling people to Islam. I want to rid people of misconceptions that they have. I want to advise people, but they're not listening to me, etc. So I've decided to record this clip here because it kind of like answers this masala as well as other masail connected to the topic of trying to bring about change and trying to advise and trying to educate, etc. If the person can understand what the conditions are to give da'wah, what the conditions are to advise, then all of these questions have them answered automatically. Before we begin, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah actually says something which is really interesting, and this shows us the quwwat al-istinbat, the ability and the strength and the precision that he has in able to derive. In his book, which is known as Al-Hisba, also known as Al-Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah says that in the beginning of Wahy, all of the ayat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed from Iqra and Mudaththir and others, all of them, these ayat, have the conditions of giving da'wah and giving nasiha. So everything that we're about to mention now, without making this lengthy, if you go back to it, you will see the evidences for the conditions that we are going to mention. The first thing is al-ikhlas. Da'wah, or any action for that matter, will not be acceptable unless if a person is doing it sincerely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wanting to seek his reward and not gain any kind of reward from the creation and not seek anything from the dunya in it. By way of mentioning, I don't want to do this for all of the conditions, but just as an example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ, and purify your garments. Purify your garments, meaning purify وَالرُّجْزَ فَهْجُرْ, and abandon yourself and disassociate yourself from the rujz. And the ulama have said, clean yourself from any kind of impurities that you have internally as well as externally. Be sincere and clean. Number one, nikhlas. Number two, al-ilm. The person must have ilm. If the person doesn't have ilm, then it is not permissible for that person to give da'wah. Maybe the person can give nasiha, but the person returns it back to the people of ilm if they think that they have seen something wrong. So you say to them, I think this might be incorrect. I don't have enough ilm, so maybe we should go to the people of ilm. If you do have the ilm, then you do it with ikhlas. That's the second condition that has been fulfilled. Now, we find that quite clearly. Iqra wa rabbuka al-akram. Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. We find that quite clearly in those ayat. But al-ilm doesn't necessarily mean that you feel that you have studied or you feel that you've got a shahada or a certificate and that makes you now in the position where you can go out and give that da'wah. Included in ilm here is the ability to know the hal of the people. What are the customs? What are the people like? Included in this also is that the person must have hikmah. Ilm is one thing, but the ability to place that ilm in its proper place is something else. So included in this second condition is wisdom. ادعو إلى ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة. You have to use hikmah. You have to use the maw'idat al-hasan. That's going to come. That's a separate condition. But hikmah is one of them. ادعو إلى الله على بصيرة. I call to Allah based on al-basira. So ilm and hikmah. Included in hikmah is to know the hal of the people. Included in the conditions as well now, so I think this is condition now number 3 or 4, if you want to put them separately, is that you know areas of differences of opinion from areas which are not areas of difference of opinion. So you might think, okay, my sheikh is saying this, but another person's sheikh might be saying something else, and that is legitimate, that is ijtihad. But this person will come and say, no, you must follow my opinion. That's incorrect and that's wrong. That person has gone against the conditions of da'wah and giving nasiha. Also from the conditions is that the person, when he is trying to give nasiha, the nasiha that he is calling to is clear. So some of them have said there is a clear ma'ruf that you're calling to, or there is a clear munkar that you're calling to. Again, similar to the previous one. If this is an area where there is difference of opinion, then the person must understand that there are differences of opinion involved in this. Included in this, with it al-hasan, as we said earlier, hikmah, manners, akhlaq. The person must have good akhlaq. If the person is going to revile the other person or speak to them in an inappropriate manner, they're not able to keep their temper in check or their emotions in check, then it's not permissible for that person then to go out and give da'wah and give nasiha, etc. Now, connected to that, Ibn al-Qayyim and others have also said that there can't be a greater harm. There can't be a greater harm. So you see something wrong in your brother, but you now know that if you go and speak to that person, there could be a greater harm involved. That is not allowed. Also, from the conditions is that the person is not allowed to give da'wah or give nasiha where there are sins involved. Now, this is again something which is really important, because I feel perhaps a lot of people are conflicting with this. The ulama have said that if there is sin involved, then there is no da'wah. There is no da'wah. The person is not allowed to use haram to come to an objective where he feels is praiseworthy. The wasa'il that he uses, laha hukm al-maqasid. This is well known from the principles in usul al-fiqh, is that the objective has the same ruling as the wasa'il, meaning the means that you're using has to be permissible, has to be something which is praiseworthy. Otherwise, it is not allowed. Also from the conditions is that the person has ability. Now again, this is important. What is ability? Ability is where there is no harm involved for you. There is no actual harm that is going to be afflicted with. So there could be harm, but the person won't harm you. And that the person, doesn't have the physical ability to do so. If the person doesn't have any physical ability to change the munkar or give da'wah, etc., then he's not accountable for that. La yukallifullahu nafsan illa wus'aha. So these are from the conditions that I wanted to touch upon here. I mean, there's a lot more that can be said. In actual fact, to be honest, there are books written on this. Like I've said, there's Al-Hisbah by Ibn Taymiyyah, and there's a great deal of benefit in there. In there he talks about advice, in there he talks about Amr bil Ma'ruf, in there he talks about Nahy al-Munkar, in there he talks about da'wah, in there he talks about the difference between nasiha and enjoining good. So for example, nasiha would be something that is done in private, done with care, done with the intention of personal rectification, whereas enjoining good and forbidding evil would be public, would be trying to bring about a benefit for everyone. Both of these, there is an overlap. Both of these, there can't be an agenda. Again, we're talking about ikhlas. The person is doing it for the sake of Allah. He's not doing it for the sake of politics or anything else like that. So, I mean, there's a lot more that can be said on this mas'ala. But I think it's important that we familiarise ourselves with these, and perhaps, inshallah, there is a book by Ibn Uthaymeen, inshallah, that we can probably go through at some point. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He makes us of those who, as He says subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He makes us of them. Who is better than those who call to Allah and do good deeds? وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ, and they say that we are proud, that we are from the Muslims. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His virtue and His fadl, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He makes our works as a sadaqah jariyah for us. هذا والله أعلم وصلى الله على محمد.